Good morning, Wise Tribe, and welcome to Anju Asks. Today I'm with Yusuke Kanaumi. Hello.
Hi, Anju, how are you?
Good. Thank you for coming along today.
Thanks for having me.
It's Christmas. Definitely festive season is upon us. And I don't know about you, but that means celebrations, gatherings, and perhaps a little bit of drinking and merriment. So today we're talking about how to select a good bottle of wine. I am not a huge drinker. Drink a little bit when I'm out and maybe at home, but I do get overwhelmed when I have to try and buy a bottle of wine. I just don't know where to start. There's so much choice these days. And so I'm coming to you, Yusuke, for some advice today. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience and your background and your love for wine?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I started learning about wine during culinary school. I kind of wanted to be a chef, so that's where my journey began. And then we were required to take a wine course to learn about the wines of the world. And then there I, discovered this like amazing world of wine where you have not just white, red, sparkling wine, but there's a lot of depth into that. So I decided to kind of move my career towards becoming a sommelier.
Okay.
So then I continued my studies. After I graduated from culinary school, I decided to stay in the kitchen, kind of learn more about how to cook. Wine pairing was one of my favorite things. So I figured that having a good foundation in cooking was very important.
Yeah.
So then afterwards, I moved to Hong Kong, where I continued to cook. But I was the main liaison between the sommelier and the kitchen, kind of do the wine pairing menus. After that, I decided to actually make the career move to become a sommelier. So I moved back to Tokyo, worked at a sushi restaurant as a sommelier. Kind of get a different world of cuisine to try and pair something with sushi. And then after that, here we are. I started a wine importer, importing French wines. We call them exclusive French wines, just because no other importer has access to these French wines. I used to live in France in the Rhone Valley, and that's where I made these connections with local, family-owned estates who are eager to send their wines abroad, but they don't have the necessary means to.
Right. So you were literally on the ground, in amongst them.
Absolutely.
And that's how you have access to these fabulous wines.
So I wanted to see different sides of the whole wine world. So I worked in the vineyards. I did harvest over there. I did some winemaking, some bottling as well. So I've tried to see all aspects of the supply chain to really get an understanding of how, to explain wine and to kind of get the whole wine world, to be immersed in the wine world.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody needs a friend like you. I'm sure you have a lot of interesting advice to share with us. So let's start from the beginning. As I mentioned, I don't drink an awful lot. So when I walk into a store or I'm looking online, there are plenty of providers. Where should I start? If I just want to buy a bottle to enjoy at home, are there any guidelines that I should be, parameters that I should be, what should I do? Where do you start?
Anju, that's a very good question. I get asked that a lot. I have one question to ask people when I get asked these questions. One is, do you have a wine that you like? So if you do, I would recommend researching the grape variety and the region of the wine.
Okay.
So if you prefer an Australian Shiraz, for example, then I would recommend, okay, where are Shiraz grown in other parts of the world?
Okay.
So in the Rhone Valley, it's called Syrah, the same grape variety. Syrah in the US, in Washington State, even some in California, they grow Shiraz. I would recommend sticking to that. Okay. So you have some sort of comfort when choosing a new type of bottle of wine, but also you have that familiarity of knowing, okay, this wine's going to taste like something I like. And so you can kind of engage in something new, but also feel comfort and not go wrong by spending $20, $30 on a new bottle. On the other side, if you do not have any wine that you like or you don't have a preference, I would recommend with something fruity and lower in alcohol.
Okay.
Everyone tends to like something with a little sugar, a little fruitiness to it.
Yeah.
Some wines that are dry can be a little intimidating.
Yes, easy to drink.
Exactly. Yes. Start with that. For example, Torrontés is a type of grape variety from Argentina. It's very fruity. Albarino from northwestern Spain is a very good white wine, lower in alcohol. Vinho Verde, for example, from Portugal, has a little spritz to it, very low in alcohol, easy to have before a meal as well. So I would recommend going with that. And then once you kind of get accustomed to that, you can try and go on to Burgundy Chardonnay, which tends to be more expensive too, but a little drier and has like a little harder to appreciate.
A little heavier, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you say lower in alcohol, can you give us a sort of percentage to look for?
Sure. I would say the average is 12.5 is the average amount of alcohol in wine. Once you go a little lower, 11, 12 is okay, lower in alcohol.
Okay.
Wines from warmer climates, for example, from California Cabernet, Napa Valley Cabernet tends to be 14.5, 15 sometimes, even Zinfandel. So it might taste very fruity and good, and after 2 glasses, you're really going to feel it.
Okay. That's a really good tip, actually. I've never thought to look at the alcohol content in wine. Okay, so I think that's a good place to start. Start with what you like and expand on that. There's no need to sort of feel that you have to zip around and taste every kind of grape and then choose, right?
You'll get there eventually.
Right. So let's then talk about a different scenario. If I would like to buy a bottle to take to a party, for example, where do I start with that? Because that's different, because then it might be for your host or you might be opening it there and then and sharing it with people. It's not just for your own consumption.
Yeah. So in that case, once again, I would go with something I like.
Okay.
There's definitely nothing wrong with presenting a bottle that you really appreciate to someone, who's hosting a dinner or a party. Yep. We all have preferences in wine, which just makes it very difficult because someone might like this certain wine and the other person might not. Yep. And there's nothing wrong with you giving a good bottle of wine that you really appreciate, because that really, there's deeper meaning within the bottle of wine that you appreciate.
Yes, there's some thought. So it's not necessarily about choosing a common denominator, something that is the most popular grape.
Exactly,
right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you don't really have a bottle that you like, go to a wine shop, make sure you set a budget so you don't overspend. Go with something fruity, lower in alcohol. I would suggest that. Everyone's going to like it. It won't be a difficult drink if they end up opening the bottle.
At the time. Yes. Okay. That's a good suggestion. So take advice as well from where you're buying from and start with something that perhaps is, on the fruitier side, but also something that you like and something that you can recommend. And I guess that's sort of where you come in with the Kanaumi collection as well, because you are there in your members club, behind your members club, I should say, to advise people as well. So in that scenario, I could message you, contact you, and say, hey, Yusuke, I'm going to a party and I've got no idea, but this is my budget. Do you have something suitable? And you're right there, that little excellent friend in my back pocket who knows everything about wine, to help. Right?
We're always accepting DMs in our Instagram, even on Facebook, and even our Kanaumi Selection on our website. We offer very approachable wine from lower end of the budget to more expensive wine that's a little more complex. And so we have a variety of range where people can select and, use to gift for the Christmas season.
Yes. Pick and choose. Okay, so talking about the Christmas season, let's say that I'm hosting a party at my place and, when you have a number of guests over 10, 15 people, maybe it's a dinner party or maybe it's just drinks, and I want to make sure that I cater for all of my guests, how do you make sure that you cover all of those bases in terms of wine? That you can find lots of guidelines for menus and cheeses and things like that to offer a good selection. But when it's wine, is it as simple as, some bubbles, a white and a red, or, what do you suggest?
I mean, it can be, and I would suggest it to be like that. If you have the confidence to kind of pair each dish that you're serving with a bottle of wine, sure, go ahead. It's a little more difficult, a little more challenging, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it.
Right.
But in general, I always recommend, especially in the Christmas season, to start off with a bottle of sparkling wine. So in general, you can serve about 7 to 8 glasses per bottle of sparkling wine in a flute.
Yes.
So then start off with that. There's no need to, if you have a specific budget, don't start off with a nice bottle of champagne. You can have a Cremant from areas in France, which are lower in price range.
Okay.
There's sparkling wines in Italy. Even a Prosecco would be nice.
Yes.
Some great sparkling wine from South Africa as well. Even in California. So see around your budget and then try and decide which one really accommodates to your style. And then have a little white wine. I would suggest going to white wine as well. When we come to still wine, I would suggest maybe 5 glasses per bottle.
Okay.
So if you have a bunch of heavy drinkers, maybe you would count 1.5 glass, maybe even 2 glasses per person.
Yes.
And then go with something medium, not too heavy in oak, not too heavy, full body, not too light. So you can kind of allow everyone to enjoy the wine.
Yes, something balanced.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
And, a nice, a little more complex Pinot Grigio from Italy would be nice.
Yeah.
If you have the budget, of course, a Burgundy Chardonnay is always nice. Even California Sonoma Chardonnay is very similar in style. It's very balanced as well. And then, of course, you kind of want to go to the reds. And when we talk about the reds, the same idea goes along. Basically, don't go something too light, don't go too heavy. Go with something in the middle. A nice Beaujolais Cru, which are more in the higher end of the Beaujolais hierarchy. They're very friendly. And,
quite light, I would say, a Beaujolais.
There are heavier styles as well, so you won't have the very light reds that you see in regular Beaujolais.
Yes.
But very friendly for your wallet. Also, a Malbec from Argentina, for example, is a nice example. Chile, Cabernet Sauvignon. They're not too expensive either, so when you have a limited budget, I think that would be a great way to go. And after, if you're challenging yourself to give yourself like a dessert wine.
Ooh, yes.
Moscato d'Asti. It's very light in alcohol, a little sparkly, a little sweet too. Usually when I offer dessert wine, I would suggest the general rule would be to find a wine that's sweeter than the dessert. So when you have a dessert that's sweeter than the wine, it overpowers the aromas and the flavors of the wine and kind of makes it unbalanced. If you have a wine that's sweeter than the dessert, it tends to be okay when you pair it.
Right. And you would, I mean, this might be a silly question. You would pair the dessert wine at the same time as the desserts?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So like you say, the dessert's not masking your beverage. They're actually playing off each other because your food actually have more sort of textural qualities as well than just the beverage. So they're bringing different things together.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's really interesting to think about a sweeter dessert wine and a great recommendation. So thank you for that. Wow, lots of things to think about.
It's not too simple.
No, but it's a starting point. And then, like you said earlier, you can definitely start somewhere and build on it once you've had that experience and you know what you like.
Absolutely.
And budget is definitely important in Singapore, where alcohol can be a little bit expensive, depending on what you choose. So that's it's good to have your recommendations in line with that too. Some options there. Finally, we've talked about lots of things to go for, but are there any things that we should try and avoid when trying to select a good bottle of wine?
So I get these questions. Why should I not buy bottles that have screw caps?
Oh, right, yes.
You know, people tend to associate screw cap wines with lower quality.
Right.
It's not really the case. New Zealand wines, almost all are screw caps. Even Australia, they use screw caps. And basically the idea is that, you know, cork comes from trees, and to be sustainable, they use screw caps. But also cork is the main reason for bad wine. What I mean by that is corked wine, called TCA. Basically, this is bacteria that seeps into the wine, creates this wet cardboard moldy smell.
Yes.
And that's why we have a little tasting at the restaurant when we order a bottle of wine.
Of course.
So a screw cap prevents that because there's no bacteria involved. It protects the wine better. It preserves it by limiting the amount of oxygen into the wine.
Right.
So you can find high quality wine from Australia and New Zealand that are in screw caps.
Yeah.
And, you know, it'll still give you a very good night.
Okay, so there's no need to be snobby.
No, not at all.
We've come a long way in wine production,
Yeah.
and the wines can be just as well preserved and delicious.
Yeah.
So no need to turn up your nose at those screw caps.
Yeah.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you so much for everything that you told us today. I've certainly learned an awful lot. And I look forward to checking out the Kanaumi Selection online and see what you have there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Anju, for your time.